Here's some juice. I'll call the meeting to order. Rochelle, I don't believe I saw any public comments or anyone signed up, or do we have any public comments? Do I hear a motion that we approve the agenda?
You knew
She's got your second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from May 6th. Thank you, Rochelle, for that. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from our previous meeting? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Now we're gonna turn to Tom for an update on projects. And part of what we started doing several months back was trying to have him as a regular, especially as we look at our beach access points, because that's probably our most important recreation feature that we have. So Tom?
I'll start with some bad news. I mentioned at the last meeting that I applied for some grant funding. Unfortunately, we were not picked. That was even the pre-application phase. So we didn't even make it past round one. They said they had 21 applications totaling $4.2 million, and they had 2.4 million available for funding. So the applications far exceeded what they had available. And this go around, they were focusing mostly on new construction, and of course, all of ours were rebuilds. So that's kind of why we didn't get picked for that.
It's not for the walk-up.
This was for the two that we already have budgeted to repair this year. We were looking to get some additional funding and potentially look at doing some more accesses if that funding went through.
And it was access number
18 and number 12.
18
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And just to help us educate a little bit, where was the source of this grant funding? What was the source? Like, who was the entity from whom you were applying? I'm trying to learn who all the players are.
The Department of Coastal Management. Thank you.
And they do it annually, so we could apply later.
Next cycle, we'll try again. In your board packet, there's a copy of the last playground inspection. I think that was requested by the board.
Yes, sir. Do you mind just holding that one? Or do you have the ability to be with us throughout the meeting?
Yeah.
Great. Do you mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that it was in the packet.
Perfect. Thank you.
The rinsing station usage for the month of May, I know that was a hot topic, so I'm just going to kind of update that as we go. Access number 9 averaged 251 gallons a week. Access 10, 222 gallons a week. Number 11, 302 gallons a week. Number 14, 101 gallons a week. That's a total of 3,500 gallons for the whole month of May of the rinsing station. So
You consider that a lot or a little? I
Rock in the
don't.
bucket.
That's what I thought, but I didn't know how to
Really-
assess that.
Let's wait till July.
Sure, we're going to have June and July. We did see a little bit of an uptick in the week of Memorial Day, but nothing that,
Well, you fixed the one that wouldn't turn itself off, right?
correct. That was number 9. We put one of the new custom ones that we're building in-house now. So,
Fine.
thank you. The banners for the Topsail Sounds concert series came in. Originally, we had permission to put them on the power poles as was discussed. That, however, when it came time to put them up, we were not allowed to do that. So we had to improvise. We have 2 of the 3 banners are up. One is at the park, on the pole that used to house the traffic mirror. The other one is in the south end parking lot. We had to do some modifications to the brackets to keep them. The first day they were both down already due to the wind. We had to kind of modify the brackets, but they've been up now for like a week, so we're pretty confident that we're just going to hang on to the third one as a backup if something happens to one of them.
So what happened with the power pole?
We had permission and
And we did.
we reached out to find out if there was a height that they wanted them at, because I didn't know what the regulations were. And that's what we were just told that we weren't allowed to do it. There was really no explanation. So, hey, it's their pole, so
No, I understand. I
that's
just,
what it is. Yeah.
It was a verbal conversation in my office initially.
So we can't ask a third time and expect a different answer, is what I'm saying.
And they also said, while they don't like the Christmas lights being on the poles, they tolerate that. But I guess they drew a line in the sand with the banners. So, but the locations are good. They're visible, and as much traffic as the south end parking lot's getting, that's in a good location. So, the staff prepared some netting at the pickleball courts over the last 2 weeks. And the basketball court was painted today. If you remember, I mentioned last meeting, we were going to use that as kind of a guinea pig to see if doing the pickleball courts was something we could tackle. It literally was 2 men. Yesterday, they power washed and kind of cleaned it, and today painted. So really a 2-day process. So, and that is all I have.
I know this sounds minor, but I don't think it will be over time. The weeds that are coming up through did you get a chance to look at it?
I did see it.
Did you see it?
The weeds are coming up through a section
Oh,
of
the
the
asphalt.
Yeah,
asphalt.
they're coming up through the different, I mean, it's, by next summer, they'll bust it up. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it's Weedsville.
So the company that we used, part of their pitch was that wasn't going to happen, and we've reached back out to them. So depending on what we do next year, if we have them come back, they're going to address it.
Only if, hopefully.
So they're not gonna address what's happening right now?
Well, so they're a season, so the company that we use their main office is in Iowa, and they have, it's a family-owned business. The son branched out and does work in this area in the winter months, but then they don't do work in this season here. They all go back to Iowa. Complicated. I still don't understand the whole logistics of it. But basically, they're not here for this season until the fall. So when they come back in the fall, they said they would come down and look at it and address it. But that means
There's nothing we should do or could do.
I don't know. Well, so we recently just got one of our staff members certified pesticide spraying, so we can potentially spray now. I know that's not going to fix, the long term, but it might be able to kind of stop it in the meantime until we can, get a long-term solution.
Anyone else have any questions for Tom?
Well, the only question I had, which I think you got, was why off of access 20, is there no sign at all? There's zero, and it hasn't been for a while.
I don't know. I sent a text after our conversation. They're going to go look at it and find out.
I mean, I'm not talking coming along the road, I'm talking from the beach. There's zero. He's got a pole that picks up, and that's it, nothing else.
Yeah, we're checking on it.
Okay, thank you.
There are no other questions for Tom. We're gonna move to the next agenda item. And I just wanted to say that I realize our agenda items are, sort of varied. They're like little bullet shots. But what I hope to do by the end of the meeting, as you'll see, is discuss our 25-26 goals. So I feel like we all have gotten a smattering of information about a lot of things. And then we can start trying to get that funnel a little narrower to focus our energies a little better. So I asked Rochelle if she would, and I hope she's had a chance to pull up what we have as our Adopt and Access program right now. It's on our website. It's under residents. And that's all there is. And we talked about this a couple of meetings ago. And the question is, do we need to rebrand it? Do we need to branch it out? Do we need to do away with it? What do we need to do with it? If you will also, Rochelle, on a different tab perhaps, or pull up the conserve the point from the coastal area management. One of the things that we have talked about, and we began talking about this when we had the shade, talked about shade covers, about it's a vibe. What do we want our community to be known for? What is our emphasis? What's our focus? And when you look at the master plan, one of the things that comes up is ecological management, marine management. And I feel like when they bought that piece of property at the end, that became a lot of what South Topsail is about. I think that's what I want you all to think about. And they are, as we heard at the last meeting from Roy, gonna create for the South End a program with volunteers that walk the point, have educational programs, also litter, things like that. Now, that's only for that part of the beach. But this is, sort of the what you see online when you pull up Conserve the Point, it puts you back to this, and you can see this is all about the South End of Topsail. So I don't know if you all have any questions or thoughts of this, but as we begin to look at where we want to focus our energies, I feel like one place that wouldn't take any money or very little money would be trying to create an online presence. And hopefully through creating an online presence, you will be out to the real world and create a real feeling and vibe on the beach. What do you all think would be wanted and what do you think would be needed? I know I heard Sue having a discussion before the meeting about the amount of litter on the beach. So, what if any thoughts do you all have on this general topic of, I guess, what do you want the presence to look like on the website? What we have now doesn't really exist. I mean, there's really not an adopt and access when you think of it as like litter control. What it does do is give people a way to commemorate folks they love. But then there's no way to keep it up. You know, if they did a planter.
Well,
What are the things you think you'd like to have there? Alex?
so I guess I have a question to start with. There's a planter there, I assume, for the ones that have been adopted. Does the town put something in that planter, or so there's nothing written in the contract that says you get $300 donation, you get a plaque, and that's the end of it for that entity or that person?
And I will let others answer it, but my understanding is the town doesn't put anything in there. And I actually saw someone pruning something. It may have been at Access 18. There was someone pruning the plant and I stopped and I said, oh, thank you for doing that. Is this your, oh, I'm so sorry. Is this, this is awful when it's the chair's phone doing this. That's what happens when you have aging parents, you get calls. And I said, is this yours? Does your family have it? She said, no, I'm a surfer and I work in landscape and I couldn't stand it anymore. So I'm just fixing it to answer it.
So maybe that leads us to maybe reformulating the adopt an access program. It could be in memory, it could just be in honor of, but instead of $300, which I guess maybe it's $300 to pay for the plaque, and then a commitment for maybe a certain number of years to maintain something in the planter. And I don't know what that would look like. I don't know what else is out there like that. But I think people who are serious about wanting to honor or remember somebody would be willing to contribute some sweat, I would think.
And that's sort of like beautification. Do you?
Kind of like roadside, I think, when you put up a sign in memory of something, you adopt a highway, you go out there and clean it a couple times a year.
Do you all think that there would be enough interest and enough people willing to volunteer to do that?
Help me understand, Access 18, that's in memory of Dick Clark. That's the one you're talking about, right?
Oh, I don't know if there's
Anything she's saying.
yeah, there's one I know there's one at 15, that's my.
But it's 2A as well.
There's one in but there's nothing else around other than that. That's there, and I'm over there picking it up.
We have one that my wife put up. They started the plants there for 10 years now. Town does nothing.
You know what?
As a matter of fact, she does one that's on the other side, that's not even hers. But that's all on Winter Beach every day.
I mean, I pick it up too, I mean, because I'm walking every day, over and over.
I'm kind of thinking a planter is probably not the best idea. And perhaps, I'm just kind of follow this a minute, you know, usually it's like a little placard that says in memory of or in honor of somebody. And that's really what people like, is to be able to see that displayed. So what if, and it might really help us out in other ways, if you're paying $300, we could actually get more contributions than what one planter would do. If, you know, like, now, obviously, there's not a sidewalk there, but I'm kind of playing off this thinking. Like the rails that we've already been inspecting at the accesses, if somehow portions of them, like the rails or something going up on an access could have a placard on it or something, and then that way that money helps us towards replacing a board or whatever that might be, I don't know. But you could get more people than just the one planter would do. You follow what I'm trying?
I do. And this is, and I don't see us making decisions, but these are the kind of ideas I'd like you to pop up so that then we can, with the staff's help, make them more concrete.
Or like on the bench or something, maybe you could have placards on the benches at those accesses or something that doesn't have to be maintained like a planter does. I don't see people doing that.
I've seen benches with
Yes.
plaques on them. And we could, I like your idea, Pam, but it might be that we start with one
Right.
on the bench, and if those sell out, then we could expand it, but there may not be, we don't know how much interest there'll be. I think
There's built-in benches at some of the accesses, you know, versus just those standard.
there might be opportunity, depending on the access, because they're all different. There might be more opportunities at some and fewer opportunities at others.
So what I hear is one purpose we see that access, adopted access has now, and that you think people would like going forward is a way to memorialize people.
I mean, maybe, but not through a planner.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying, what purposes do we, so another, do you think, so what I also feel like I'm hearing when we talk about beautification is perhaps not necessarily encourage planters, because it's hard to keep them up in this heat. So maybe not, as a general,
Right.
I would also suggest that might be, and I don't know if this is even common, to have a window and say, this plaque for 5 years or 10 years, because at some point you're replacing the plaque anyway. So if they want to renew it, they can, but maybe they pay it, and maybe 10 years is the right amount.
When did you say Access 18 was gonna be redone?
Sometime in the fall.
Just in fall.
Now, it's before we leave this program, and, there are two other things I wanted to ask. One, do you think there would be enough interest to make it worthwhile to have an adopt and access, or do we expand it to adopt a block? How much do you think litter is an issue and should be a focus of this town and to address? And could be nice to address it through volunteers. You may not think it's an issue right now, but what are your thoughts on that? And like I said, maybe it's not an access, but maybe it's a block, because it's the road as well as the.
So I can speak, at least in the sections of the beach that I live on, north of the pier, there are people who walk it almost every day, and we pick up the trash. And most of you remember the beach sweep things we did until this year. And Christina could clarify, but what I understood from her earlier or last week was that it wasn't scheduled this year because there's so little trash for the beach sweep people, probably because the locals or the regular walkers are picking it up as they walk. At least in our area, it's true. That's true. I can't speak. I can't speak for the rest of the beach.
So do I hear you don't really think that's what needs to be a focus right now?
Are we gonna be responsible for cleaning the end of the island now?
No, that,
Like when we do beach sweeps,
no.
it's not gonna go past 20, right?
Well, beyond 20 would be the coastal land trust, and it may be Conservative Point may do something out there. Well,
Again, as a reminder, we have staff that goes out and also cleans the beach, not just the residents, the property owners. As far as the south end is concerned, the beach all the way around, sound side, beach side is public trust area. It's not specifically coastal land trust owned. It's what's inside the dunes that is coastal land trust owned. So we have responsibility for those areas too, and our staff does go down there to pick up, you know, the special debris that washes up and things of that nature. You know, I'm not gonna say that they're down there every single day picking up, you know, a bottle that somebody left on the beach the night before, but yes, we go down there.
Lastly, as we talk about the webpage, do you think, I brought up what Roy showed us the last time, how they are linking to Conserve the Point. I noticed in the master plan, there were people who thought the town should be proactive and ecological preservation, you know. I don't know what the right buzzwords are, I'm not. But do you think that is a vision or a vibe or a feel that you won't believe people coming to Topsail Beach should know? I mean, is that, to be known as, do we want our webpage to focus, have a focus on that?
Can I make a comment here?
Please.
So I haven't been here quite 3 years, and before I came here, that is the reputation of this town. And since I've been here, that is the reputation of this town. So and that's without maybe having the website look the way that you think it should. That's the reputation of this town.
I agree with you. I agree 100%. I think that's where we already are, and I think there are ways
100%.
I think there are ways to build on it. And at the last commissioner meeting, I felt the commissioners mentioned that in the sense of when they had the Conserve the Point, a little bit of a hiatus into Conserve the Point, you know, we should capitalize on this, not as far as marketing, but just build on that, make it a known feature.
I think that if you were to query most people that live in this region that know anything about Topsail Island as a whole, because there are people in this region that don't even know this island exists. But those that do would I think would say that that's what this town is known for.
And what I'm suggesting is, do we want to even make that a part of our media and, you know, build on it through this site? It sounds like that's maybe something, okay. And that covers all the items I had under website updates. Do you all have anything else you want to throw on, or?
I actually have a question going back on the adopt and access or adopt a block. A little tongue in cheek, but would that be restricted only to those who live here full-time year round? And here's why I'm asking, because the people that adopt an access or adopt a block that live in Raleigh and only come here 3 months out of the year, and they're supposed to be helping upkeep that access or that block. Who does that fall in? Oh, hi, Christina.
Just thought I'd make a quick comment, just historical fact. Hi, Christina Berg, Assistant Town Manager. We did have somebody actually adopt an access, put a bench up at the south end that did not live here and did not have property here. I think property owners would be different, but didn't live here, didn't have property. And we did that, and it was decided after that it would just be for property owners only. So they don't have to live here full time, but I know we'll have to make arrangements for them to, when they visit infrequently. Just so you know, that was one thing that we
I'm
came
just thinking
across.
about if part of this adopt the access thing is supposed to be that they help maintain, but they're not here to maintain it.
Well,
How does it
I feel like there is a need. I've noticed in walking, I feel like I see more little bits of trash. But I felt like from overall, we feel like that's not focus we need, at least right now.
Well, the purpose of adopting the access is to keep it clean. That's a different perspective than honoring them.
No, it is, and that's what we have now. That's what I'm saying. So I feel like what I'm hearing is one of our goals for the coming year should be to differentiate these programs and have clearer parameters. So we're doing that for the memorializing. We'll do that for like our focus, think of how to focus on concert, you know, bring that already the vibe that we have and reputation that we have to the forefront. A third was, do we want to focus on something that has to do with litter? And if we don't, for right now, then that's all, the agenda. So you don't have to make a decision now unless, think about it. Does anybody have anything else before we move on to, the next agenda item? This next one is gonna be very brief. You have, a handout in your packet from this has to do with funding options. It's, Doug, I'm gonna just look at your or Christina's eye. When you wanna jump in, you feel free to jump in. I'm also gonna, I realize this is a public meeting. I was real hesitant about AI, but I'm coming to love it. So what I have for y'all is an answer to, a question I posed to AI, and you, Doug, there is a sheet there for y'all. There are 2 sheets. They're not in your packets, but they're on this agenda item, so there will be. So when we start talking about how do we fund projects, these are all things that, we have talked about. Yeah, there's one for you, and one for you. We think about the tax dollars. We know that's where we get our funds. We know there's some grant funds. But what are the other revenue options? So what you have in the book is something we got from the School of Government, which just says, may a local government accept money from people? And the answer is yes, as long as they have the statutory authority to spend it for that purpose. So Parks and Recreation, if people want to donate money to the town to help us fund Parks and Recreation, we can accept it. This just gives you a little bit of information that, well, that's, you wanna jump in?
No, I'm gonna wait.
Okay, so this, to me, I'll leave this with you. I hope you'll take it and sort of read it and get familiar with it. But if you go to the bottom of page 2, there's a question that says, may a local government solicit donations for its own programs, projects, or services? And the answer is yes. It has the inherent authority to spend money to help solicit broader contributions. And if you look at the top of, now this one is on the School of Government one. I haven't gotten to that one. I'm on the one that was in your packet. It's information that comes from the School of Government at the Institute of Chapel Hill. Yeah, this is it. Do you see it on?
I don't have it.
Actually, oh, there you go. And if you look at the top of the 3rd page, it says local units are increasingly using social media platforms to encourage crowdfunding of particular programs and projects. And the pretty much the restriction on how these monies can be expended is just that the town has to have the statutory authority to spend money in that way. Now, the second handout that I've given you, which was the result of my AI, makes me look very smart. But I will say it was all things I knew. It just put it in a great outline, much better and much quicker than I could have done it. And it just sort of bullets the different sources from which we can get money, which are state and federal grants, local funding mechanisms. You have your general fund allocations. You can have bond referendums, recreation fees. But you'll notice under number 3, it's private and alternative funding, corporate sponsorships and donations, nonprofit and foundation grants, and fundraising and volunteer efforts. These are not things I like to pour over, but I want to give you the information as we start thinking about things. And the last one I printed out, this is the one with the little green check, is one of the things that we talked about that was in the master plan is if we're going to accept, if we want to begin an effort of trying to raise money for things in the parks and recreation area, things we need at town center, these things, how do we begin collecting it? And one of the things in the master plan was creating a Parks and Recreation Foundation. And this just, the question I queried was, what are the advantages and disadvantages of creating a nonprofit foundation to collect money? And we'll come back to this later if you decide this is something that you believe should be a focus for the coming year. But if you look on the back of it, there's just a summary table. And and when it makes sense, if it's a nonprofit foundation, you know, they're tax deductible. If you give to the town, it may be a little, you know, the town's not gonna say it's non-deductible. They'll just give a little blurb, check with your accountant. That,
Go ahead. I've got things to add. Go ahead.
well, the negative to me would be that you're creating another board. You're creating a legal entity. That board is then gonna have to meet. Is that, you know, the question is, can the town do it? Could this board essentially do it now? And now I feel like I've set the stage with a lot of information for you that I hope
So
you'll
Mr. Shelby, give it
to now.
So again, as you know, I did this about 6 years ago with Denver County, where we created a foundation, Parks and Rec Foundation separately. And it states it in here that some of the pros and cons. The biggest pro is that creating a foundation is that when you're going after donors, it's that tax deduction, right? And 501c3, you know, they just latch onto that. The negative to going through the foundation is that you do have to have a separate board. So it cannot be this, or it should not be this board. Actually, it cannot be this board. Although you will need a board in place to get it off the ground. And so what we did in Pender County is we started off with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board as the board of the foundation as well. So we would gavel in to a Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting, have a meeting, gavel out, gavel in as the foundation, and gavel out. But you have to separate them. So, so yes, that's another board that you would have to. You would also have to, the foundation would have to do its own taxes. So you have to, you know, submit every year. You have to do a solicitation license. I actually just did that last night for another nonprofit that I'm on. Okay, the board that I sit on. So every year you have to register with the state for a solicitation license to be able to go out and ask for donations or sponsorships. So there are, but the benefits to it, if you were to do it through us instead of a foundation, is that we have procurement policies. As a foundation, you wouldn't. So if you wanted to buy something as a foundation, you could pick whatever menu you want. We have to get 3 bids on everything. And depending on the dollar amount, we have to put out an RFP for it. So you got to keep that in mind. The other thing I want everybody to keep in mind, regardless whether you donate or you create a foundation or you just have people donate to the town, is just because you want something on the town center park and the foundation is going to pay for it, doesn't mean the town is going to let you. So you can sit there and fundraise all day long for a roller coaster. And you might get the money for a roller coaster. But if the town doesn't want a roller coaster in the town park, they're not going to let you do it. So you've got to keep those kind of things in mind.
That act at the front just to collect money. So we wouldn't actually, I mean, we would do the advertising, word of mouth, we put stuff on the internet, but the money that came in, we wouldn't touch.
You mean if everyone did it through the town as opposed to through a foundation? So again, this is where it gets tricky, right? Because if you're out there marketing and promoting on behalf of the town has to give green lights. You can't, because if you go out and do something that is suspect, you're acting on behalf of the town, right? So everything would have to be approved if you're doing it on behalf of the town. If you're doing it on behalf of the foundation, you just have to worry about your board as a foundation and what they decide. But again, that's how you collect the money. But what you do with the money within the town, if you want to do it on town property, then has to come back to the town for approval. It's all very complicated.
And,
Worth how much you collect too.
Yeah.
How did you do in Pender County?
How much did you collect? Your first year, 35 grand. No, sorry, the first year, 45 grand. We had a golf tournament that raised 10 grand, and then we had a monetary donation of 35 grand, and that $35,000 came every year for 2 or 3 years.
do you think a nonprofit has more flexibility in how it raises funds than the,
I'm gonna say yes, but my reason behind that is because I think that people are more inclined to donate money to a 501c3 than they are to a local government. And not to something that's branded as a nonprofit 501c3. But that's my opinion, and I don't have any real, data to back that up on what people would do, but that's my opinion.
I would think it's something we'd advertise, beautify it, make the town, things like that.
And again, there are pros and cons every way you go.
so the question for today is not to act on it, but to see if that is a road we want to get more information to.
What I would recommend is that I would reach out to other parks and rec departments in other towns and even Pender County and ask them, what are the benefits? What are the pros? What are the cons to having that Parks and Rec Foundation? And see what they tell you.
I will tell you that, and I will be happy to do that. My concern is that this town is so small. Your resources, your people resources are finite. And you are creating another entity that needs strong leadership.
Correct.
The boards are only as good as the leadership on them. So, and if you look on that, this is what, there was one place that said, if you're a small town, you may want to weigh those pros and cons more.
So I forgot to mention that when I also with Pender County, the Parks Foundation of Pender County, we had to, we paid for an accountant as well. So I mean, there are costs. And then it was $800 or $1,000 a year to have the accountant do the bookwork and file the taxes and, all those different things. So
One of my thoughts are, if the Parks and Rec Board, with the commissioner's approval, had a list of projects it wanted to fund and wanted to try to generate funds for it, would people be as willing to give if they know? The question is having a nonprofit foundation going to increase the amount of money you receive than if you were operating as a board? Because there are definite costs to it. There's definite duplication of effort, and there's definitely got to be a strong tie, because as Doug just pointed out, you can raise all the money you want to, but if it's not in the town's plan, then you're not going to get it. This board would not be operating outside of the town's plan. So
Another pro, I mean, again, pros and cons no matter which way you go. Another pro to the foundation is, let's say the foundation raised, $1 million and they wanted a roller coaster on the town center, and the town said, we want a roller coaster on the town center. Well, you all don't have to go through the RFP process at the foundation, and you can get it done a lot faster. No RFP, no bids, no nothing. You can just hire the company that you want because you've already gotten approval from the town. Everything's good to go. So I'm not saying that we're getting a roller coaster in the town of Topsail Beach.
well, that's a playground equipment, we can just fix it. Obviously, we're not going to come to a decision.
No.
My thoughts today is this something you all would like to? Today, I feel like it's trying to be a meeting of where do we decide what we're going to start focusing on? Is this a topic, or what's the pleasure of the board? Because we need to see, if we were going to pursue that, I think we'd need to ask, I don't know at what point we would need to ask the commissioners how they felt.
Yeah, so
I
that's,
mean, I would want to pursue a topic down the road that they didn't want us to pursue.
yeah, so again, in Pender County, the Pender County Board of Commissioners had to approve them moving forward with the Parks and Rec Foundation Board. There was, I'd have to look up the documentation. I can't remember the language, but it was adopted or by the commissioners for them to go ahead to move forward with that. So,
And like I said, and maybe this is a question we could ask just surrounding small towns like ours. Did it increase the amount of money you may receive? Because I'm not sure that the costs are worth the benefits if something was adequately marketed. If people, I feel like people give to a cause, like a, so they're not gonna give to the Parks and Rec Board of Topsail. But if we have a list of projects, this is what we need. So then they're not giving, they're giving.
so I'm gonna agree with you on that. I'll use the board that I sit on now for the local youth hockey association. And we have found it easier to raise funds when we say, this is exactly what the money is going for. It is going towards offsetting costs to send these kids to a tournament in Jacksonville, Florida. And that's, and that's what it's gonna be used for, very specific. When you say it's just a general fundraising, just to go into a general account, it's a little bit more difficult. I'm not saying impossible, but it's a little bit more difficult for us to get those funds raised for that youth sports organization. So.
And also on the canon that we got from the School of Government on page 3, there's this question on, is the donation tax deductible? And it depends. So like you said, if you create a 501c3 and you give to it, well, then you as the taxpayer, that's all you have to think about. You've done it, you got it. For this, you would have to, the town would probably, it actually, the School of Government gives a little clip that it would suggest putting on there.
I have to say that I don't know that we have the resources, human resources. We have 3 boards and we have duplicate members on those boards. And if you look back 5 years ago, one of the boards served as 2 boards. So I don't know if we have the people even to do a foundation, much less the energy it would take for another set of people to go about that. So it's a cost benefit kind of thing. I don't know that we have that in our size currently.
I feel like.
All right.
Good.
Come, don't worry, Doug.
Please learn
Oh,
early
you're
on.
good. Bertie Andrews, UNC School of Government Fellow. One, I'm excited that you're using Coates cannons. It's so exciting to hear that people are using those. They really push those on us at School of Government. So, I guess also in terms of, kind of how you would want to set this up, Dr. Mulligan, at School of Government, he does, public-private, like foundation work and also economic development. He's a really good contact for you all. If y'all had any more questions of how we could set this up. It's Tyler Mulligan is his name.
And if I recall correctly, when I was with Pender County, I believe we tried to recruit one of you two to be on that foundation board, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, what a name.
So for the county, can't remember. So.
Well, as we go through all our things, as anybody who's been around this town knows, especially the last few commissioner meetings, funding becomes a major issue. And as Bob is always quick to remind us, where's the money coming from? We don't have to have all the answers, but we need to be cognizant of it. I guess what I feel like I'm hearing is that we need to look at ways to get it, possibly not don't go down the path of a nonprofit, at least not yet. What is that? What I'm correct? And that doesn't mean it's off the foundation. It doesn't mean it's off the table, but maybe see if other things work. What do you think? I see your.
Is there more investigation to do? Like if you reach out to that gentleman, he said, and just a little bit more investigation before we say it's completely off the table? I mean, I don't know. I hear all the pros and cons to it, but.
I would reach out to them, and and follow up at the next, I'm hoping that what we'll learn there, as this canon talks about,
Yeah.
that there are other ways. Local governments themselves are increasingly using social media platforms. GoFundMe, that there may be things that the town can do as its own fundraiser for specific projects. And that, so it's not, please.
And more on that. I will say, if you did want to use GoFundMe, it's just important that you, as Doug mentioned earlier, you're very specific as to what you're getting your money for. That was something we used at ECU Rugby. And it turned into we would use it 2 or 3 times a year, and it kind of turned into, okay, we want to see people have a kind of a return on their investment, stuff like that. So if you wanted to go that route, I think that's a great option. Just as Doug said, you got to be specific as to what the funds are going for, and also just understand kind of timing that, because if you kind of repeat it, it gets stale,
I'm not here for this.
Yes, but if you approach them, just identify yourself, please. We welcome public comments.
Denise Hoffman. I've raised a lot of money for a lot of different things over the years. And I have found the smaller the group and the more centered it is on the project, the more money and the quicker you can make it work. So I would say your extra committee would just be redundant, and then they have to come here and then they have to go there, and it's just more things. But I also would suggest, if you want new playground equipment, then how about reaching out on your website and say, look, we need a slide. Don't dedicate it to your grandchildren, future grandchildren, whatever. And have a little sign that says, this is for the enjoyment of all future grandchildren, or whatever, by so-and-so. People will give money hand over fist for that kind of stuff.
Thank you. That is music to my ears. That's the path I hope we're going down. Okay. Anything else on this agenda? There was no action I felt needed. I just really wanted to. Is there anything else before we move on to the town center? Anything else you want to add? And Denise, with that said, Denise Hoffman, would you please? We are now looking at town center itself, and she wanted to come and talk to the board about something.
Recently, we had a pickleball player pass, and we would like to do some kind of memorial bench, or we also said maybe we could rebuild the fence between the pickleball court and the basketball court, because it doesn't really work for pickleball people. We get hit in the head with basketball all the time. And we would be willing to spend up to $500. We are at your mercy of what you would like. We set a bench because that's kind of the normal thing that people want. We just put our name on it, and we would like to put it close to the pickleball courts. But there's other things. A backboard, a practice backboard would be something that we could do. I made a couple lists and the sketch of a fence that we thought, somebody had suggested a chain link fence, but they're like $1,000 and they're ugly. So, Shauna, you Herrick? So I'm just asking permission if we could go ahead and do something. The pickleball people would raise the money and pay for it. We just need to know what we can do and what our options are. These were the options that we came up with.
Thank you. As you can see, we were brainstorming a lot, and we've been brainstorming. So this is right up the alley for what we are.
The other thing that I would like to suggest, I have a huge garden that I have an overage of flowers that I dig up every year and just give away because I have too much. If you've noticed the cannas at the pickleball court, those are my cannas. I have 1 million cannas. If somebody wants some to decorate the town someplace, if anybody contacts me, I'm happy to give them to. I have Mexican petunias, I have liriape, I have all the basic things that really don't take any care. You run a lawnmower over them in the fall and they come back in the spring.
Might need something on it.
Whatever, I got tons.
Anytime, I'm sorry for the loss of your friend, and I appreciate what her friends want to do to help moralize her, and I thank you for the opportunity for us to consider what to recommend to the town. to-
Well, I mean, we've spent a lot of hours there. All of us spend a lot of hours there. So we'd like something in that vicinity, but we're open to a lot of things and we'd like to do it for the town, with the town.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, do you have like a top, like this is like our preferred number one, number two, number three? And do you have any kind of idea of what the pickleball players, the people that were like doing?
The bench was number one,
Number one.
the fence was number two,
Listed, okay.
and the backboard was
Oh,
number
let's see,
three.
it's already listed. Okay, perfect.
So,
I think we would love the opportunity to work with you. And we'll give it thought and be reaching out with you. Whatever we'll do will be within collaboration.
okay, Christina has all my information.
Thank you.
I would suggest that we, let Tom look at the cost involved with each of these options that we're, talking about in terms of the town impact. Because not many things cost $500, but doesn't mean we don't want to do it.
That was just our ceiling of what we would contribute to the town.
Absolutely.
How much are those benches we currently have that are sitting like at accesses? How much does one of those cost?
Well, I also winter in a small town and we have polywood instead of wood.
100%.
And they're like between $350 to $500, depending on how heavy, and all the different things. And I've reached out to them to see where their supplier is. I don't have an exact number, but I know that's what they
That
cost.
would do real ideal.
So,
So, we know that being able to remember people who have a close tie to Topsail Beach is something that's been going on for a long time. And we need to help figure out a way to facilitate that. And I understand what you're saying, whatever you do for your friend, you like for it to be in the vicinity.
right. And we're okay if we buy one bench and we put, as time goes, other people of that pass in the group that plays on it. And we're okay with that too. It becomes the memorial bench of the old guard pickleball players.
Oh, thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. This is where last time I didn't realize, I thought Doug was just standing in for Christina because she had a grandbaby due. I didn't realize he was gonna speak to us. He doesn't always grace us with his presence. But we are very grateful that he's here for he and Tom to talk about the playground equipment. Just to give you.
You're still smiling, Doug.
One of the things that one of the things that was in the master plan was the fact that our playground equipment is not handicap accessible. And whether that is something as we talk about our town, do we want to be a town that is also known as being handicap accessible? We want to have things. And also in looking at that, and because I remember we looked at the shade structure for some of it. So what I had asked them to do was they had already done a report on the current status of our playground equipment, and that's what Tom will go over with us. Because there's one thing, there's a desire to be handicap accessible, but I think second, the useful life of playground equipment is not indefinite. And this playground equipment was bought how many years ago? 14? Yeah, I knew at one point, but I forgot. And I was thinking it's been about 14 or so years ago. So, I feel like we have need, desire, cost. So, an idea. So I'm gonna leave it to Tom and Doug.
So I don't have a grand presentation. I'm just gonna go over what I have accumulated, through some quick questions. I did wanna mention that about 2 years ago, through notification, through facility improvements, things of that nature, we had notified the commissioners that we needed to start looking at the playground in the town center for replacement. Again,
because of where we live, you know, in this part of the country, specifically on this island, the salt air really does a lot to the equipment. And, you know, we've had, some issues with it. So, it's not a new topic. Last month when I was, gonna talk about the playground, I reached out to Zach at, Pender County. Cause you know, they're working on a, expansion of the Kiwanis Park. And they're also putting in a new park in just outside of Burgall. And so I asked if they had any information. Yes, he did. So they're actually in the process of replacing the smaller playground on the Country Club Road side of the park, if you're familiar with Hampstead Corners Park. And it just so happens that apparatus is a pirate ship. It just so happens that apparatus would fit in the exact square footage that we have here in ours. So I think it was 50 by 90 square foot of mulch space. So you can see the Play World pirate ship, and I will say that if you notice the price tag, it's $106,000 for that. And that does not include the swings that you see in the picture, because the swings that are currently there at Hampstead Kiwanis Park cannot be replaced. So it's just the apparatus along with, I think, a shark head and something else. So that just gives you an idea of what these things cost. I will note that it's not 100% ADA accessible, but it meets the minimum requirement for ADA accessibility. There's a percentage, I can't remember what it is. I don't know if it's 80% or 60% or something to that effect. The other thing that I noted on this one particular one, and this is just one, you know, options, is it has shade over top of the playground, which I think is pretty crucial. The negative to the shade, if this is a material shade, is that it would have to be taken down every time there's a major storm that comes, because that's what we had to do at Hampstead Kiwanis Park.
Yeah.
Over top of the one that they have there that has a shade, you have to take it down, and it's a beast. So, I also wanted to point out, and I don't see it in front of me, but there was some other things that I maybe are in your packet. No, there was another one. Let me see if I can find it. You didn't? Well,
There's a lot of pages.
there's a lot of pages in
Is that for you?
Yeah, I have a paper. So there's another quote from Great Southern Recreation for a shipwreck playground, with cargo steppers and a turtle, and so on and so forth, including installation is $245,000.
Well, I would just say Rochelle did include the one that's $600,000. She was drinking beer and
Okay, but this just gives you an idea of, you know, again, of the cost of these things. It's
This is where
crazy.
crowdfunding becomes important. This is how we got.
Right. So, again, you know, Ms. Barnett's, where's the money coming from? I mean, even if we went with a smaller version, it's $106,000. This gets us roughly what we have now.
Does our stuff we have now need to be replaced?
And that, Tom, will you speak to that?
You
There
can
is
see-
something in your packet. There's a report.
Yeah, we get it assessed every 6 months or a year.
It's yearly.
Okay.
And like Doug, I don't have a presentation or anything, but that's why I included, at Rochelle's request, this in there.
And that was a live request. So
As you can see, there's a lot of minor things that, you know, that we take care of as kind of priorities, you know, brackets and stuff like that when it becomes like a sharp hazard or something. The playtime was in a couple months ago and fixed. There's 2 of the swing seats were completely rusted out, and they repaired those. But as far as we kind of as needed, we see something, we do it. Like there's a lot of little nagging things that probably not 2 regulations, but it's, you know, we're not professional playground installers either. So
Well, there's actually a certified playground specialist. There's actually a whole industry around this where, you know, like Zach, for example, in Fender County, he's a certified playground specialist. So, I mean, they go out to their playground, you know, like once a month, and they inspect everything, and they'll replace chain links on the swings, and, I mean, it's just, you name it, and so we actually pay for a service that comes out here and does that for us. And they come out here annually to inspect our facility.
I think, the reason I wanted that there is because when we look at the different things that we want, for example, when we brought in Lori to talk about shade cover, some of that was desire. It would be nice to have this. When it comes to the playground equipment, its useful life is nearing its end. And there are concerns with it, and it's not handicap accessible to any degree. So I believe as we start to look at items we might want to pursue, there's some we want to pursue and others I feel like there's a greater need to pursue. And I'm curious if you all would agree that the playground equipment is a project we need to pursue.
According to this report, there are issues that should be addressed sooner rather than later.
And as we all know, the process is very long. If we decided today and the commissioners approved next week, it would still take months. So it's a project, if we want to do, we need to start.
Months or two or years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Building a fire truck.
in
This is where a foundation could do it in the blink of an eye, but we have to go through.
I'm gonna speak, I think, on behalf of the staff, in that as far as we're concerned, that is the only priority in as far as Parks and Recreation is concerned, and nothing else is a close second. I don't know if you all agree with that, but, I mean, again, we pointed this out to the commissioner 2 years ago, that this is something that needs to be a top priority. I mean, resurfacing the basketball court or the pickleball courts, I mean, that's a nice thing to have, okay? But I would not call that a priority. But resurfacing the basketball court is also low hanging fruit, which is the reason why we're doing it.
And it doesn't cost
It doesn't cost $105,000. So, but this to me is I think the highest priority we have as far as the Parks and Recreation situation is concerned.
Comments, questions?
I feel like we're at two meetings. We started off with $30, and now we're into $160,000.
And tariffs are gonna increase that even more.
But we as a Parks and Recreation couldn't solicit money for equipment for the town, for the park.
Again, the answer to that is yes, with the blessing of our commissioners.
Well, my point is, I think, even though it's a small town, I think we'd be able to pull a lot more than 35,000 in gifts. I think if it's done right, a couple 100,000 would be a nicer number, and that would pay for your equipment. I mean, keep in mind, what did we just raise for the South and how many millions of dollars? How many local people contributed was 300 or something like that? They love this town. These people love this town. You don't have to advertise to make it better. That's exactly right. People love this town. I mean, our old town commissioners still come here to go to the beach, you know, and this isn't making the town any better. It's replacing equipment that needs to be replaced, just like the access points.
Yeah.
I think those are where somebody falls and gets hurt, you know, and that's relatively inexpensive to handle right now.
Yeah.
This stuff varies. I mean, it's 100,000, but if you throw in a turtle, it's another 50.
It's so in keeping with our vibe and our purpose. Okay.
So
I mean, I would recommend that gentleman over there gets the man.
Dr. Mulligan?
Would you get him to come speak to us and explain to us?
Or on the Zoom.
We'll get.
He could probably zoom in. I mean, I'm sure that, I mean, they are begging people to call them constantly.
So
Well, I mean, he could probably give us the easiest path.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think that
if we're trying to focus this advisory board to some level, and Mr. Barnett just touched on two items, I think. There's the boards at the crossovers that are the low hanging fruit, but then there's the playground that is the expensive, high dollar fruit, right? So is this advisory board needs to decide what is the low hanging fruit, and then we hand it off to him and his staff, and he handles it. And that's,
Talk to the commissioners.
I'm sorry.
Let him talk to the commissioners.
Well, I mean, when we're talking about replacing planks on crossovers and stuff like that, that's just general maintenance and
Routine,
routine
day-to-day,
day-to-day things.
yeah.
Talk to you. This is the kind of stuff that's a different ballgame. Okay, now, I want to go back to the donating money and can this advisory board go out there and do this? Again, yes, with the blessing of the commissioners, and I'm going to tell you why. About 2 years ago, we had someone local who decided they wanted to start a GoFundMe page to fund something for the town. And the town didn't know anything about it. And so we had to basically ask that individual to kind of change the language on what they were proposing, because on how they were asking for the funds and what it was being used for. So as long as the blessing comes from this town, from the commissioners, then yes, don't just go out there and start saying, we need a playground, you know? Yeah, so.
As we keep all town center projects, and I just want to go over the court resurfacing, we won't worry about it right now. Tom touched on that already.
You're gonna do the pickleball court next.
In the fall. Because people are playing pickleball. It's the
So let's
season.
wait and see how the basketball court weather's a
So
little
we
bit.
went
Now
over,
what your time-
so we had discussed this in one of the previous meetings, that we're testing this out on the basketball court to make sure that we can handle it as a staff without hiring a third-party vendor. Because it's expensive. It was what, 30 grand? It was 30 grand. So we have the paint. Let's see if our guys can do it, but we're not gonna start on the pickleball courts as a test. We're gonna start on the basketball court as a test. So we painted it today. We're gonna let it wear over the summer, see how it works, what's the traction like, things of that nature. And then if we feel like we handled it well and that the paint handles well, once we get past AWT in the fall, then we'll paint pickleball courts. Instead of spending 30 grand to have someone else do it, we're spending staff time.
I told Tom they did a great job with basketball. I was out there today.
See, I haven't seen it yet.
I mean, I was just thinking that if it's a drying process, it let it, I've been now when it's hot out there. I wouldn't wait till in the fall, there's no pickleball players.
That's what,
Paint any day you want,
that's why we're talking about painting the pickleball courts in the fall.
but it'd be cold and rainy.
Like, we have to make sure we pick the weather day, yeah.
So speaking of paint, I know we talked about the cool top paint. I thought I made progress. I called again, left a message, reached out again on the website. Submission form, someone actually got back to me this time. The Southeast Regional Sales Manager, literally within the hour responded. That was last Wednesday. And I have not heard back from him since after I responded back again.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I'm not sure what's going on with this company, but it may be a dead end.
Thank you for,
Yeah.
thank you thank you for traveling the road. Thank you.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. As we think about town center and projects, one of the things we've talked about also is signage, a way to advertise things, a way to note Topsail sounds, just signage. We've dealt with that almost the whole time we've been on this board. And when you come across from Surf City, you see different things. You see one at their the first traffic circle that seems more permanent, sort of, I don't know if it's a digital sign or not, but on the traffic circle is the inner one near the IGA. It just has like this cross where they can attach banners. Is there any thoughts on this board as to about trying to work with someone to see about some type of signage, whether it's the middle of town center, the side, something where we can advertise things. And if you think we're doing fine, then that'll be a low burner to come back to at some other point, but if not, then I think it needs to be in the pot.
Like the banners we have now, we talked about earlier in the meeting, the ones, you know, on South End, those seem to be nice. About the, you know, the evening in the park or whatever, but
I would think if anything, the signage should be like the northernmost part of the park, because people generally come at least to town, but not everybody goes beyond town.
True.
So
I agree.
that would be a location in terms of what it looks like and how durable it is, or if it's something where we can change signs out. I would think that would be being flexible, not something rigid would be ideal. And then these things we print up for not too much money could be swapped out depending on the events or the time of year.
Have anything to add?
We've discussed I'd love to have some kind of digital sign there right at where you're talking about, at that wall. That block wall is right at the north end of the park. Because to your point, 90%, I don't know, it's 90, I'm using the number. Most of your traffic is coming in and they're gonna hit that spot. They're gonna see that.
And have you priced any signs? And the last item I want to just throw in the pot to see where we are before we discuss our goals is adult exercise equipment. I'm sure if the swing set's $106,000, adult exercise equipment is gonna be in that range. Do you think people want it? Do you think it's desired? Is it something we want to put on a plan coming in the next year?
What did the master plan say about that? Did it come in on the surveys? Right. See, that's my thing, and I feel like, you know, we had this conversation about multi-use path, we've had conversations about bikes and things like that. I have no argument that all of these things are great ideas, but what did the survey say? Did the survey say that we want adult fitness equipment? Did the survey say that we want, you know, wider bike paths? I mean, that's what I think we need to be going off of.
I thought it was low, but I definitely want it. And I also, while you mentioned multi-use path, if you'll just take one off, this is another thing, and I know we're going past the hour, but I think we'll come to some. I just asked for the distinction between a multi-use path and a bike lane. And the two are very different. Their needs are very different. On the on the presentation we had from Sam, it was incorporating the multi-use path, which is for pedestrians. And if you have it, you can see on this, for pedestrians, it has to be separated from the roadway. I want to, we know that that's a long range project, but I want to get a feel for this board. I feel like when I read through the master, as a cyclist, I think about bike lanes. That's my first thought. When I think about an MUP, I'm thinking me on my bike cycling and how I can't use that path. Okay. But when I look back at the master plan, what do people want? Do people want a bike lane or do they want a multi-use path? They are not the same thing and the requirements for them are not the same. If it is a multi-use path, its primary purpose is pedestrians, bikes to the extent, but that has to be separated, which Christina has told us multiple times. It has to be separated from the road by a section of ground, and which is what ours is right now. If you're a bike path, it can be adjacent, like it is in Surf City. I'm curious, do you think Topsail needs a multi-use path or do you think Topsail needs a bike lane? They're two different things.
I personally think the multi-use path is more important because our speed limits are not that fast, and the cyclists, unless it's a really good surface, they're gonna stick to the road. And they're willing to fight on 55-mile-an-hour rural roads. Our roads are a piece of cake. I'm not a biker. That would be a better question maybe for Bob.
Right,
I'm not a road biker, put it that way. But with the number of vacationers, multi-use path, I mean, you've got people with strollers, you've got walkers, you've got casual bikers, which can use a multi-use path.
I mean, I like the multi-use kind of idea as well, because multiple people can benefit from it.
What do you think?
I thought the state was interested in doing something all the way from the bridge down.
They are.
That just,
Well, they are. That's the one that's gonna cost, that was what our presentation was on. We didn't make the cut this year. So the next round will be in 2 years, 2027. That was what that presentation was last meeting. That was the one that's like $15 million. And the best way, if we think that's what's important, then the best way we're gonna be able to get that funded is the town is gonna have to contribute a whole lot more than 20%. The only way to up our odds, I think, is to make it almost 80 from the town and 20 from the state. And if we do 80 from the town, that means a lot of fundraising. If we're happy,
Tax increase.
well, that, is not gonna go. If people won't do that for a building, they're not gonna do it for like that.
I agree 100%.
So, if we're talking multi-use path, I feel like that the road Tom is traveling with trying to make our multi-use path, I feel like that is it may not be what the state would do, but it's one we can financially do. If we think we need to do what's in the state plan, then we really need to be thinking fundraising. And that's why I want to see if you all think this is a priority, at least for now. And that doesn't mean we never get to it, but what I'd like to do, the next agenda item, is to sort of narrow down what we want to accomplish over the next few months so that we can see if the commissioners are in agreement with us before we keep going. And that's the question on that path. We've had it.
Just a question on the last item on the agenda.
Well, the last one is discussed the 25. So we'll sort of, and everything we've been doing for the last 4 meetings is built into this. So at that first one, when we looked at the beach, we rolled a lot of things off. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that doesn't mess up our quorum or anything if I go, right?
Do you have any closing thoughts though before you leave?
No, I'm good.
I'm sorry.
No worries. I
Oh,
better go then.
well, I won't keep you on here much longer. So, and that's it, as we end our meeting. What are y'all thinking for?
I would say a government for low hanging fruit. The cost is a little higher. This will be way past that. $15 million if we have to come up with 80%. I think we have to wait until the state wants to pick up the tab. I mean, it's a great thing to have. It's, if you go north south, though, it's not an issue biking up there because they've got the road and that's for bikes. But here, we're gonna have a lot of problems with people in the north end of town that they park in the right of way and stuff. I think the commissioners are gonna have to deal with that.
I will say the north end, I'm back on that bike, that is a bike path. Alex had said, well, what's one idea? Why don't we do away with the grassy area and just have it all adjacent? And that's what I'm saying. The issue is if we want a bike path, if that's something we think is more needed, then we can consider an alternative, which is do away with that gravel and make it an extension of the road, just like they've done from Surf City to north to the bridge. It's not that way once you make the turn, but it's, so do we think a bike path is more important or a multi-use path? And the main difference to me is that grassy area has to be there for a
I
multi-use
think the
path.
problem we had years ago when Rodney there's not enough feet from the street to, you see where telephone poles, that's where the right of way ends. you have to squeeze it in there, and it works down here, but north end of town, there's just no room. And I mean, we would be facing most students.
Well, I think the thing that when you start talking that's when you're trying to put in a bike lane and a multi-use path. Because we already have a multi-use path on that stretch. Right?
Yes, we do. And I back road on all the way into Surf City today on the bike path. The problem we have, no, on the bike path in Surf City, yeah. It's land. We're just tight on land. And that's I think that's what's driving the cost of putting in the multi-use path. Because we're talking about 10, 15 feet, you've got to move utility poles and I would probably have to recuse myself because I have a house in the right of way. I'm not even at the normal setback, so I would lose my entire parking for my house. So I would obviously be against it personally, but it's just cost prohibitive. I think to try to put the plan that the $15 million plan is just.
It's not, okay. Well, that answers a lot. I feel like I think the only paths we have not trod would be programs and the marina. So we'll save those for another year, but looking at the things here, looking at what we've talked about so far, what do you all want to make? Just 1, 2, and 3, the priorities for the coming year. I mean, we have looked at the town center, we've looked at boardwalks, we've looked at
I don't know if it's possible to get grants to assist in repaving or resurfacing the multi-use path from line to line, because it's going to take, the current process is going to take years, lots of years. But the other thing that I would consider a priority, I think would probably be playground equipment, because it's not going to get any better. And as much as I like the idea of adult exercise equipment, that's more that's going to rust and not last. I think
used as much.
simple and smaller is probably more feasible.
You have any?
I think the long goal would be the playground. There's something on where the money's gonna come from.
Yeah, we'll settle that, but let's.
And as far as the bike paths and stuff, we're gonna have to wait and see. It's too down. There's a lot of red tape that's going to be dealt with, but same token, if they ever put a sewer system down, that's exactly where they put it, right under a new bike path. Who knows?
What I feel like I'm hearing is the playground equipment is a priority for the coming, to begin focusing on. Now, that doesn't mean it's accomplished, but focusing on for 25, 26.
I think we could also look at the signage, the idea of the signage. I think that has some traction. And again, we don't know much about cost, but it would be nice to have something. I mean, even to remind people that we only have recycling on Mondays, or that, today's the first day you have to have your dog on a leash on the beach. Stuff like that. It could help, because we have so many people who come who don't get the weekly emails. They're here for a week. They're clueless. And we can use that as a way to communicate to people who we would no otherwise communicate with, who are here all summer in weekly doses.
I want to ask you a question when it comes to those beach accesses that you were rebuilding, number 18 and 12. You didn't get the grant. Can you are those projects funded within the town to the extent they need to be, that you can do those projects without the grant? Or are these projects that are halted until additional funds?
It's budgeted. The thought was if we got the grant, that would allow us to move on to more accesses this year. The 18 and 12 are the only two that are in the budget for this year, though.
And and what I feel like I'm hearing, as much as we all would love utopia with a bike path and a multi-use path and going from one end of the island to the other, we recognize that what's most needed is a pedestrian path. And do we feel comfortable that where Tom is on refurbishing our current path is the correct path to be on for the immediate future? Or do you want to see something different?
I think it's, what he's done so far is great. I guess a little concerned that it's asphalt versus concrete, but I mean, cost wise, it's probably significantly different.
And the thought was before I got here that they started with asphalt, so just continued with the width and everything that they already had. The asphalt's actually a little thicker than they were originally putting down. But that was just my thinking, was they started with asphalt, so that's what I kept going with.
Okay, well,
I have a question that I saw somebody has actually plans to cut the asphalt to put something in, and that's been common in up north of town where they would cut the multi-use path and patch it with concrete, but the existing path was concrete, but now where there's asphalt, are they going to patch it with asphalt?
We'll patch it with asphalt. It's it's a tap, it's a water tap. So
As long as you, so it's gonna be contiguous with the surrounding material.
yes.
well, do I think what I would like to have is in the form of a motion that our goals for 25, 26 that we would like to present would be to prioritize the playground and signage as improvements to town center. Or, well, if I don't need a motion, I don't need, okay, well then do I have agreement that that's what I'm presenting to the board? That we all are and as long as we're all in agreement, then we'll move forward. And of course, that'll take many different phases. It'll take funding. It'll take it'll take a lot more thought, but we need to make sure they're on the path with us before we keep going down. And as far as funding, I would like to share with them that we are looking at ways to encourage additional funds, you know, through gifts, through sponsorships, through donations, through but that we are trying to get that big. The next item on the agenda is to discuss the next meeting date. I will really discuss July and August. What are folks' plans for the summer, 2 summer months? There's a lot that can be done behind the scenes to get us ready for these things. I mean, this will take a lot of time to talk to Mulligan to get enough information back. So I don't know that we lose much. We met longer today, but we've accomplished a lot. So I don't know what people have for vacation. Is July July this time will be the week of July 4th. Do you all plan to be here? I know Rochelle is on vacation. I'm here. Okay.
But it's busy and who knows even if I'll get parking space here.
I think you should present your feelings about the equipment to the board at their next meeting. That we're gonna take a priority on it, and therefore they should be cognizant.
Okay. So do I hear a desire to meet July 1st or to wait until? Okay, well then we will meet July 1st. It will not be this long, but we'll have updates and we'll be more focused on the agenda. I feel like the staff is coming in with additional comments. Thank you all for being here. I know it's a little longer than you had probably allotted. We appreciate that. Does anyone on the board have any additional comments, or thank you all for your patience for being here? So good. I'm glad we have a path. It's not an easy one. Nobody ever said it would be easy.
Rochelle does have something that she likes.
Yes, there's a concert in the park tonight. It's been rescheduled from last week.
Thank you. I meant to say, you know,
It's on our digital sign.
thank you for reminding us.
Just reminded Rochelle will not be here on July.
He will not be here on July 1st. I thought she was necessary to our meeting personally, but y'all don't think so. Y'all don't think so, we will meet.
We'll bring it.
Okay, so do I have a motion that we adjourn?
So moved.
Second it, and all in favor, say aye. Thank you all.
Yeah.